visionary, brand creator, storyteller. Duane Watson is one of Toronto's iconic sports journalists, working alongside TSN, producing projects for NBA TV Canada. Duane's passion for basketball allowed him to find his calling as a storyteller. Before pivoting into the sports world, Duane was a marketing guru in the music business. Duane leveraged his journalistic principles of storytelling and marketing mindset to bring things to life, such as the Hoop Club, TO, NBA XL, and the famed Nike Crown League. From the heart of the city, this is a culture conversation.
Hey, what's up, world? Checking in on episode 6, Heart of the City, here on a conversation. We have a special guest, Toronto legend, sports journalist, the humble soldier, Duane Watson, man. Welcome him to the show. What's up, yo?
Yo, thanks for having me, yo.
Yo, no worries, man. Blessing, peace, and love. Hope all is well with you.
Doing all right, man.
Before we get into our array of conversation and discussion, I just wanted to check in. So, what's up with you?
Man, that's a big question. Which way are you taking that? I mean,
like how you been keeping up with this multitude of COVID?
It's been interesting. I think, we first thought, okay, we didn't know how long it's going to be. It's going to pass. And, you kind of ride it out and it goes okay and things are opening up. But I think it's now is the toughest time because it's getting colder and it's more of the same. And we don't really know when things are going to open up. So I think this is the time I feel like I'm getting tested mentally and emotionally. But I mean, it's been a good year for me. Ironically, professionally, it's probably been one of my best years.
Wow.
So, in that regard, it's been kind of cool, and that's kind of really been keeping me going in that regard. But I've only played ball once since it started.
Really?
Once.
Man,
yeah.
how you survive it?
Honestly, it's killing me because for me, it's that's my release, and that's I don't work out. That's my hustle. But I check my parents a lot, and I think even in the summertime, I was if I go on a court and you're playing with guys, you're sweating, I was it's not worth it, unfortunately. But I mean, so I'm making do, but I miss hooping for sure.
Nah, we all do, and it's crazy because I feel the youth needs sports, but the city in general, I feel like sports, especially in the city of Toronto, it's a very good source of entertainment for a lot of people. And you can adhere to it. You talk about the Crown League, the OVO, Hoop Fest, and all these other different high entertainment performances that they put on in the city. So before we tap into that, I just wanted to kind of draw back to your early upbringing. Tell me what that was about, growing up on,
And this is
your side.
You're okay, this is real. You're digging in. Okay. I mean, I grew up born in Scarborough. I grew up in Markham. My parents, my bro, rest in peace. He passed away.
God bless his soul.
But it's funny because he was the guy who really got me into ball. I wasn't really into basketball that much. And we used to play fake ball in our basement, unfinished basement and whatnot. But I mean, life was solid, grew up in the suburbs, I'm not really a city guy. I'm a city guy now, but I was definitely a suburban guy back then.
Yeah.
And had a strong foundation of family and friends, and did my thing until it moved into the whole professional stage.
Yeah, and it's crazy because obviously growing up in the East End, that's sports is that common, interest. Everybody's either playing ball or soccer or football, or you play every sport actually growing up until you specialize into one.
Exactly.
So what was that like when you actually got into basketball?
So it's funny because I wasn't a big sports guy. I mean, you play around as a kid, but I wasn't really I wasn't playing in soccer. I wasn't really playing in organized sports until public school, on the basketball team and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, I would do a little track and stuff, but I wasn't really playing other sports. And then in high school, I started playing other sports, but it was always ball. And my three best friends from high school, basketball was the galvanizing thing, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're still my best friends to this day. But, back then, it's summertime, let's go hoop. Let's get on our bikes or get in our car and drive to Scarborough or a different area to run against some other guys and knock these guys off their turf. So that was the spirit of basketball, where you're kind of always traveling and or going to courts where the runs are at.
Yeah.
And that was pretty easy because you knew where you're gonna go, right?
And that's the American way. I miss that part of competing in basketball. I feel my generation didn't really okay, we're going to the West End, the Falstaff to play these dudes.
Right.
And then we're going uptown to play these dudes.
Right.
We're going to go to Regent Park and play these dudes. We had to wait until we're playing like OBA and stuff. But
Exactly.
I feel like that's like not as essence.
Yeah, I think the street ball or just outdoor hoops isn't a thing anymore. Like the younger generations, is not a thing where they're like kids are in gyms, which is great. But I think like let's go to the court, let's play the lights go out. Like that just I think you look at like childhood and how technology, not in a bad way, but it's changed where like kids aren't out playing as much.
Yeah,
right.
So
I think that's changed where when you're younger, it's just like, okay, let's go here, let's go there, and you're out in the streets, and it don't even matter, right?
Yeah, it's just it's so sad, man. Like I see, and you find yourself like reflecting. I could drive by like a nice court, and I'm like, yo, this would be a sick workout right now.
Right.
Like, yo, we could run like games,
Right.
because like I always appreciated playing outside, but like it was such a novelty out here. Like it's just like, okay, we don't do that, and I had to go every summer to New York City to like play at every corner, and like my cousins, they had a legendary park right behind their building.
Oh,
so
wow.
every day I was
You just got to go outside, and it's right
and
there.
then you play against the gangsters, the actual top hoopers, so you get different competitiveness as you go along. You know what I'm saying?
And also, like in that regard, when you're just doing that, like it just teaches you how to deal with situations and different kinds of people, because you're not necessarily in your space, or you don't know, like you got to navigate, and like, okay, this guy, there's different kind of ballers. Like there's the guys who like don't play but are always like, you know what I mean? So I think there's like a lot of and you don't learn that in a organized game setting, because you're not going to play with these type of players because they're just going to get fouled or get kicked out or ejected.
Exactly.
But you got to be able to like, okay, this is how he's moving. How am I going to work around it? I'm not trying to fight. I just want to run, but I'm not going to back down
For
too,
sure.
right?
And it's I watched the Last Chance U basketball thing. I don't know if
I watched it.
And they said there's a difference between a basketball player and a hooper.
A hooper.
A hooper, you can throw him in Regent Park. You can throw him in South Central LA. You could throw him in Rucker, in Harlem. He's going to adapt. He's going to figure out a way to be efficient in that space.
Exactly.
And then a basketball player, he is only fit for Carlton.
Yep.
Where it's like, you put him in the Crown, you put him in OVO, he probably won't be his best.
Right.
But a hooper, okay, I'm going to put you here.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you here.
They can get a bucket.
I'm going to throw you here, and you actually can.
And they can shine. Like they'll stand out. You'll see. You can tell the difference.
Yeah.
And that's not a diss. It's just a different type of players.
Yeah,
right?
and I feel like too, because that comes from more of I think hoopers come more from the street ball influence.
Yeah.
Where they learned how to play on the street. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest. I played organized basketball, but I learned playing in the street, in the like going to the community centers and playing 5-on-5.
Yep.
And then when I got to the high school ranks, and you have these AAUs and all that stuff, that's when you're playing more systematic. But that's why I was, like I told you, I used to look forward to competing at those like more summer circuits.
Right,
Because that's where you could kind of let loose and you just play hard. You're not playing, you still play the right way, but there's less constraints.
I'm in my 40s, and hip hop is like a really big piece of like who I am, right? And I kind of
hip hop. What are you talking about? Like music?
Yeah, of course, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so when you talk about hoopers and ballers, it's like, back in the days, like freestyling was like an art form, right? You had to be able to go off the dome, and now it's different. Like a freestyle is not. So it's almost like the same thing. I'm not trying to like diss on generations, but where like the freestyler is the hooper, like the the KRS-One, the Rakims, those guys are the hoopers, and like the current rappers are basketball players because they don't have that. There's a certain essence and energy of like being that hooper and being able to like navigate that space, right?
That's crazy. You said KRS-One, man.
Oh, dude, don't get me started, man.
It's crazy because where I lived in the South Bronx was like 13, not even, I think like 10 minutes away from where the birthplace of hip hop took place. So I wouldn't call myself a hip hop historian.
Right.
I'm pretty much connected to it through those experiences.
Of course, exactly.
So like I said, like Fat Five Freddy and all these guys, that's your era. But I'm tapping into those guys before I take in Fat Joe or
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I understand what you mean by that, where like, with the change of time, it's like a lost art.
And it's funny you mentioned Fat Joe too, because Fat Joe started like, I see Fat Joe now, but I know when Fat Joe started, he was like a b-boy, like rapping and spitting and stuff. And
same
he's
thing.
but everyone evolves, right?
you got to reinvent yourself.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So we're gonna talk about obviously you having that sports influence from a young age, and then now, how do you kind of tie that into getting into media or journalism?
Well, I have to, so before we get there, there's a part in the middle, and you said about reinvent yourself, and that's kind of what I did, because I was in the music industry for like 10 years before I got into sports. And like I talked about, like, you know, hip hop and stuff. And I think when I got in, it was very much when black music and hip hop was popping off, and there were people in offices like, you know, like when Outkast first came out, and it's like, what do we do? Because they're middle-aged white people who don't understand hip hop. And of course, being like, as us, we're consumers of the stuff, we know how to access it, we know where to get it. So I was involved in a lot of marketing to, like, you know, make the stuff pop. So that was a big part for me. So I was doing that for a while, and I was working on hip hop, black music, and country and rock and pop, and you know, a lot of different artists. And it was dope. The industry was blowing up, and then the internet hit, and of course.
Change the time.
Right. So I mean, instead of buying a bunch of CDs, like, people aren't buying music, they're downloading music. And I think the music industry made a lot of money. Like, people bought vinyl, they bought CDs, they bought cassettes, and it was like they were laughing. And then they're like, they still wanted to keep making that money. And I'm like, you know what? I can kind of see where this is going. So let me get a package and make a move, because it was turning into not making music anymore, but like pushing units. And once it became units, it's like, I'm selling plants. I could be selling anything. It's a commodity. It's not about, like, kind of the essence of developing music and finding stuff and making stuff pop. So I asked for a package, and I basically said, okay, I'm gonna get into sports journalism. I used to do a little writing before that, and basketball was my other love. And I was fortunate in my career where I did something in music that I loved, and I wanted to kind of do the same thing with basketball. So I was like, gonna be a freelance writer. So going from like a 6-figure car allowance, expense account, all that stuff in the music industry, to like hustling to write. In a time where this is like over 10 years ago, and you know the basketball media landscape now. 10 years ago, there wasn't.
I can imagine.
Exactly. Even if you think about TSN 10 years ago, never mind now. So it was a real big grind in terms of, like, I couldn't write about basketball in Canada. I had to write about other stuff as I continued to kind of like find opportunities. But much like you, how you've had that success in terms of like going south and finding those spaces. That's kind of where I really started to find a place where I was doing stuff with, like, you know, US magazines like Hoop or Slam, that it was natural for them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That I can kind of navigate it and turn into where I'm really building into, like, developing my name in that space. And that was, and I think, like, just like I got into music, I think one thing for me when I got into music was that I wanted to be able to tell our stories, right? Or share our music, right? And finding out, just like reading from some people who are writing about the game who don't not understand the game, but like I think there's a difference nuance to like how we appreciate and understand the game than someone who's never played it and writes about it, right? It's almost like that. I think we're gonna keep going back to this hooper and basketball player analogy a lot, whatever, right? So I wanted to kind of make sure that I had that voice into sharing these stories, or sharing our perspectives, because we know how we talk about the game versus like how analysts talk about the game. And this isn't a knock on analysts.
100%.
But it's just like, if you go in a barbershop or if you're a court, after the run's over, fans are talking, the energy is different. And I just wanted to kind of like bring that kind of energy to storytelling in that regard. And then it kind of evolved to, you know, so I was writing and doing my thing, and then TSN had started their radio station. And I knew that, myself and Will Strickland knew that they didn't have anyone who knew basketball. So we pitched them on doing a radio show, which was one-on-one with Duane. So we were doing a weekly basketball radio show like this, just two guys talking about basketball the way we talk about it. And then that evolved, and I was about 5 years then doing the pre and post game show on the Raptors on TSN. And Akil would hit me up and he said, hey, he told me before, I'm doing the show called The Hangout. I want you to come on. I'm like, sure. And if you know Akil, it's like, okay.
Shout out to Akil, but I definitely know what you're talking about.
So at that point, I was like, okay, cool. Let me know whenever you want to do it. I'd love to come on, right? But it's funny because me and Akil, we knew each other, but we never really interacted that much. But so I was moving my stepdaughter to Windsor. And this is when Facebook was a thing, because I posted a picture like road trip. And Akil commented, so he didn't text me or email. He commented on the photo saying, call me, right? So I'm like,
sounds like Akil.
So I'm like, what's up? He's like, we're doing the show today. I want you to come on. And I'm like, I'm on my way to Windsor to meet my stepdaughter. He's like, you think you'll make it back? I'm like, I don't know. I will try. He's like, listen, I'll hold a space for you. I'll have a backup, but I really want you on. And, you know, it was like the first time, you know, it was the first episode of The Hangout ever they were doing. And it was the playoffs, and it was Dwayne Casey and head coach, obviously, at the time, Dan Glavin and Akil, and I was coming on, and made it back in time. And you know, I loved the energy because it was very much like people talking basketball on the couch, whatever, right? And that was the first time I did it, and it felt really good. And then what ended up happening is he started to hang out in the playoffs that year, and then in the regular season, he's like, yo, I want you on the first episode. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll come in. Like, what time should I be there? Come for 1 o'clock. Get there for 1 o'clock. The show didn't start taping until after 2. So I'm like, I don't know why you told me to get here so early, but I'm watching Akil, and he's like, you know, cutting highlight packs. He's talking to the camera people on how it's gonna work. He's talking to the guests, making sure they're gonna get here on time, working on the storylines. And I'm like, dude, you're doing all this stuff? He's like, this was my baby. Like, this is my idea. Like, I've got to do it all.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, well, I can come up with storylines. I can book guests. Like, let me help you. Like, this is like kind of an extension of like what I'm doing. So he's like, sure, no problem. Mind you, I've never like worked on the TV. I've never been in TV in my life. And that's kind of how it evolved. And then I ended up being in the control room and got shown the ropes and like learned how to like navigate that space. But kind of the journey has been really, you know, kind of born out of wanting to tell stories and like learning and adapting because I never did radio before. I never did TV before. So it's been a great journey, man. It's been a great journey.
And I feel like, you know, like I said, I've been able to kind of like see that kind of journey. And even to when I met you, you know, I was using, and now that I look at it like from like a revered lens, I feel like I was using sport as a way to connect with the world. And that was my way of telling a story. For somebody that came from my environment that, you know, didn't really get that opportunity. Me going to Rucker Park and South Central LA and Watts and the Drew and coming back and playing in OVO, it was to say, like, to tell a story. You know, this kid is just a regular guy who is a hooper, and he goes to connect with different people in different communities for one shared value and one core vision for, you know, to love and use the passion of the game to, you know, inspire people.
Which is universal, right?
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's
100.
what we talk about, the power of sport.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And within those experiences now, you know, you can curate stories, you can write, you could just similar like what you said, you know? So it was crazy because when I had Akil on here, he talked about that and how you guys, you know, did that, and then, you know, you had stuff with like, he had like NBA XL and the Hoop Club and all these different like ventricles. So how does, okay, so you're there with, you know, obviously the hangout there, and now do you guys, you and Akil create that synergy now where you can say, okay, we got good chemistry, let's keep this thing going?
Well, it was funny because, our chemistry was like bang off of a jump, which is great.
That's what's up.
And it's funny, like, I think, you know, like, when you said legend, I was like, chill, because I'm still kind of new in this basketball game. I mean, I've been a lover of the game and a fan of the game, but I haven't been in the mix, right? But I think one thing that like kind of coming into this whole basketball thing is like I had a marketing mindset, which I felt was a bit lacking in that regard. Because I'm like, Kill, you host like a national show about basketball that's a vibe. How come you don't get free shoes? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, yo, like you should be hitting the shoe companies to get some free shoes. And I'm like, I got you. We'll sort this out. And like that's what I say from a marketing standpoint. And I'm not saying that like at all that I started the influencer game, because I didn't. The influencer game happened, but I know that like people started getting free shoes after like we kind of started really pushing that game a bit. So it's like that. So that turned into like a few things where like he's like, yo, Roy Rana, who's coaching Ryerson at the time, like you got the gym at Ryerson. He's giving me to, we should have a run. We should bring some people out. Let's call it a hangout run. I'm like, oh, yo, like, let me get some jerseys from my guy at Nike and we can kind of like do it up nice. And it kind of spiraled into a bunch of ideas, but Hoop Club came to be, and like Akil and I were always like building in different ideas and seeing stuff. We went to Chicago for the World Basketball Festival. And, Nike was hosting it, and the U.S. national team had a few games. And this is when Derrick Rose had just come back from injury or whatever. So in Chicago, it was a big deal. And, we got down there, and then they put us on a bus, and we end up at Simeon High. The Simeon High, for those that don't know, is like Derrick Rose went there, Jabari Parker went there. It's a big. It's like the high school in Chicago. So we come to Simeon High. We're at the school, and Jabari Parker's dad, Sonny Parker, who used to play in the NBA, is telling us about the legacy of the school and the history and what it means. And Benji Wilson, it's a Chicago staple. So, and like, wow, this is incredible. Like, we're hearing all this stuff. We're in this gym. And then we went to, I forgot the name of the park in Chicago, you might know, but like, we went to this park in Chicago, and the guy who ran the park, the legend of the park, his son used to hoop, and he was telling us the stories about this park and all this stuff. And we were just getting all these, and then we went to like United Center, and we got a tour of United Center, and then Pippen came out and gave us the tour. And we're like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But Akil and I were like, there's so many stories in Toronto
It's never been
that people don't know about, and especially that missed the digital age, right? And missed the Instagrams and missed the Twitters. So we're like, what if we tell the stories in Toronto that people may know? I mean, like the OGs know about it, but it's like, how do we make these stories and make them bigger? So that's where Hoop Club was born, and then people were like, yo, I need to be in Hoop Club. I still get hit up about that. But what we did is we made a diverse, if a bunch of people who are from the same circle who know about it are telling these stories, the circle's gonna be so big. So we got different people who love the game.
From different circles.
Whatever. Because who is this guy? It's like, but it wasn't about like who can hoop. Like everyone could play in Hoop Club.
It's deeper than that. It's what else can you bring from a storytelling aspect or.
Right.
Yeah.
But also bringing different people together who like all universally have a love for the game, right? So we had like, restaurateurs, we had comedians, we had graphic designers, we had all different sorts of walks of life people coming together in the spirit of ball. Yeah. And a lot of relationships that are still to this day that are still formed. But then it's like, okay, so now you're gonna take this to your audience and like whatever. So I remember went to Falstaff and even like Trix was like, yo, I didn't even know that all these people came to this gym. I didn't know all these stories. Yeah. So it's like even there's people you think that might have an idea. Yeah. So there's an education for them, and then he shares his story with his audience and whatever. And that's kind of what it was, where we were just doing different events and different activations in different spaces to tell these stories about Toronto basketball. Because I mean, I don't say this with any disrespect, but like it didn't start with Andrew Wiggins, right? Like I mean,
100%.
I know, but but a lot of people think that's what Toronto basketball is, right? Or for when they jumped in, but there's a lot of rich history in that, and that was kind of really the spirit of storytelling that we wanted to share there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I look at it from the perspective of, like you said, you gotta always, in order to go forward, you gotta go back in terms of like in the history books. Gives you that deeper sense of purpose and clarity.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the greats, always pay respects to those that came before them.
Facts.
Right?
Yep.
For a person like me, you don't get me playing in the Drew without understanding the history or the significance of Watts, South Central LA. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
100%.
That's what it. Yeah. You hold it as high regard, but also because of the historical history. Like you know what I mean? And you talk about Chicago and these other places. So it's very important that we continue to not only hold these opportunities, with a lot of deep sense of purpose, but we kind of have to honor those that came before us.
No, agreed. I mean, it's all about that. You can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been from, right?
Yeah.
And that foundation is important to like even understanding because these opportunities and situations and things kind of like birth opportunities were like Andrew Wiggins, like not directly, but like it's like the building of all these things happening. Where Akil, I mean, I give Akil a lot of credit in terms of like from the media standpoint from the game. Like he's been
huge.
Everyone sees Akil, but Akil's been like doing this for like 10 years before everyone sees Akil.
But that's the thing. I feel like, and that's same with Damian Lillard. Like I seen the interview yesterday. Like everybody didn't see the work behind the scenes.
Exactly.
So when you're now seeing Akil on Raptors 905, Raptors All-Star Weekend, NBA Finals, it's like, yo, this guy is new, but. Nah, he's been putting that work in.
And it's the same thing with me, and like I don't really get caught up in it. Like it's funny because like I kind of laugh with my friends. It's like people don't really know what I do, and I don't really mind. I don't like. It's not a big deal to me. I like being behind the scenes, but like so like I mean even like I remember like even with Crown League, because Crown, as we get into it, was like a place where that was, like Crown League is
hold up. Everybody, Crown League was one of the greatest basketball inventions in the city of Toronto. You look at, like I said, LA, New York City, Chicago, all these marquee North American cities had one crazy league for the Pro-Am.
Right.
Bro, when the Crown League hit Toronto, like, what's that culmination like? Like what is it like?
So obviously, we talk about paying respect. OVO, Bounce is the OG. Like that was the tournament. That was the thing happening before Crown. So I'm never gonna like disrespect that, especially because I work with those guys as my people.
Yeah.
But what happened is Charles Yearwood, who was a marketing director at Nike, who I've known for like a decade before that, was like, we need something like the Drew League. We need something like the Shire League. We need something like Dykeman in Toronto. Because now it's a point where there is so many guys who are in the NBA or are playing overseas or playing college ball. And it's like if you don't got anyone to play against, you're not going to come back, right? You're just going to go straight back down to the Drew League and that stuff, right? So can we create an environment where guys can play high level basketball, but then also build a vibe in the community and the scene.
Yeah,
and that's what was really born out of. And it's like, okay, cool. I think, like let's go to work in that.
Yeah.
And just kind of like figuring out how we would make it work and just elevating like the experience, right? I mean, like, like you saw Crown the Year, the white cord and like so it's.
I actually, and as me now, I'm not gonna critique, but
feel free. Hey,
even the first year,
right?
Like,
Jarvis.
I'm like, oh, they get it.
Yeah.
Because I remember just the atmosphere where it's like.
But you know what? Sorry to cut you off though. I love the energy of Jarvis. I loved it. Like the problem was, what happened? The problem we couldn't sustain it. I mean, like it was hot, but like all the elements you want it to be, like it's like real and authentic, but it's just like. No, it wasn't big enough, you know what I mean? But I thought, the court, even like the baseline is here and the wall is here, right? So like,
I love that idea. Like that was very rugged. That was very like iconic. Like, I'm saying the history of Jarvis in the Eastern Holiday Classic tournament. Like that's how I was from a marketing standpoint. That's how I was looking at it. Right. And it's like to see you guys create that, I'm just like, yo, this is special. And then going to Ryerson and when I'm pursuing my degree and like seeing the behind the scenes of how they're making the court, and I'm like, yo, this is dope.
But I also kind of complained about that stuff too, because I didn't want it to be too flashy, because all people care about is what's in those 4 lines.
Facts.
All the players care about is in those 4 lines.
Yep.
People come to watch the players.
Yep.
So it's like you can make it as sick as you want. If the ball ain't good, people aren't going to care.
Absolutely.
So that was definitely a compliment to it, and I think it was really good to kind of put these guys on that platform for people to see them as stars, because we know these guys are right there or whatever, but it's like you can have some kids and be like, yo, I didn't know that Big Mike was doing this stuff overseas, or I never even get to see it, because a lot of these guys play overseas and no one sees them because they're not watching the game. So to see them play, and then that vibe, the summer vibe, the energy is 100%. A different
Friday,
level.
That was genius. To, like I said, the Friday night.
That was Nico's idea.
When you talk about like. Shout out to Neeks. Yeah. When you talk about like Friday Night Lights, because the Drew's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but Friday you only play probably like twice a month.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying? Yep. So to have a strict Friday night vibe.
And I won't even lie, like I was like, Hooper's gonna come, but are people gonna come on Friday night? Because it's Friday night in the summertime, like are you trying to be in a gym? And I think that was the beauty of it, where what I loved about Crown is that of course the ball was dope and the energy was good, but people reached, man. Like people came, like the community came out, and like people were there for the ball. People were there to kind of connect. Like it was kind of like not like it was a spot, but people, it was a community spot.
For sure. And you talk about, just for that experience that it provided, like, it gave a lot of people in the inner city. And that's why I feel like with sports, especially in a city like Toronto, like we need more of that, because you see the mass crazy stuff that goes on outside. Of course. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I feel like when there's more crowns and OVOs and holistic places where people can come and connect, that's gonna contribute to more success stories. You know what I'm saying?
And you're right. Like celebrating our heroes, right? Because I think that not that the NBA does a good job of making kids want to be in the NBA, but I think at the same time, if there's people who grew up in the same communities as you, or you can touch or talk to or reach out to, that definitely inspires them, or talk to them. Hey, how did you do this? How did you make this your path? Whatever. Yeah. How are you going to Drew League and playing these games? Like, how does that work? I think that stuff's important for peers and kids to aspire to.
Absolutely, and I feel like for me personally, as I mentioned to you off record, I seen, from me being a hooper, I'm like, yo, like these are all hoopers. I want to be playing with the hoopers. Somebody had different cards for me. I had to go elsewhere, whereas I celebrated and appreciated.
Right.
You know what I mean? And for me, as the basketball guy, but also as a marketer, I understood that like, yo, this is what pumps the Drew or Dykeman or Rucker or Gersh or whatever for whatever reasons, right? But also, like I said, it's hard to compare because, like you said, the infrastructure, the limited resources.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just kind of felt like, and I felt like it was getting better from the first year to the second year. I remember I used to have these conversations like, yo, don't you think you should add more teams? Like, I think it should be a little, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I was like literally, I'm in the Drew, I'm sitting on the panel with like Baron Davis and these guys. I'm like, then I'm playing the next day. So I'm just like learning like how things are actually moving. I'm just like, yo, like, I'm telling you, we should do this. Like, it should be 8 teams. It should be like a playoff set. Like, you're like,
Right.
yo, chill. Like, yo, it's coming. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think every year what I liked is that there was growth every year, right? And I think, not that. I think at some point there was so many ballers in the city, and not that there's not enough ballers in the city, but if you want to kind of maintain that high level, and how do you continue to grow it, where it's like, okay, you know what, we've got enough for 2 more teams. You know what I mean? And also, like, logistically, that means, okay, that's not one night, it's more nights, and how do we make all that stuff work?
Yeah.
But I think the growth was definitely there in terms of it elevating it.
Yeah, and you can look at, obviously, you could adhere to that. You look at the OVO league, right? Every year it got bigger.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? We talk about that iconic moment when Scarborough got a team, the rep sub team,
Yep.
and like what that meant to us, and like it was still a high level.
Right.
It might have been a little bit more volatile of people in the crowds, but you know what I'm saying? It was good for the culture.
And OVO is like, I think it's like there's like, they both work together, right? Crown and OVO. I think they're different vibes, there's different energies.
Yeah,
and I definitely think, you get that above the rim kind of vibe a bit more with OVO.
That's what I love about it.
Exactly, that's a different energy, right? Which is what I love, because it allows it to be, so like working and being involved in both of those, like, because literally if there wasn't Crown, I wouldn't have been doing OVO. You know what I mean? I think I got the respect from Lo and Neeks in terms of like how that handled it, and just to help out there. So, but I'm just glad to be connected with those two, like, key basketball events that happen in the city every year.
That's why I said a lot of the behind the scenes, like, I mean, I kind of know Neeks obviously went to Pope and stuff, but I see a lot of these people that make the behind the scenes moves. So it's good as long as, like I said, we're pushing the culture forward, you know, and that's my goal, that's my dream, like to continue to create stories and things that push culture in a positive direction.
One more thing I want to add on Crown, and if we're moving on, it's like that I really want to push, I'm glad we got to do, is have a women's game. Like, we had the women ball in too. And I think obviously, like, we see how the women's game has grown so much, and opportunities for them to be elevated on that same kind of stage, right? Yeah. I think you look at Canada basketball, and like the men's team is, doing their thing, but the women's team has been like 4th, top 5 in the world for like years. Yeah. So they need to be on the equal stage.
And that's another thing, right? Like, I know a lot of other leagues have women's side of college program.
Exactly.
And, like I said, I feel like with time, things will definitely get better. And like you said, when you are going through these processes, you understand, and you get experience, right? Like,
of course.
It's like you started the Crown. You're probably getting 50,000 requests. Oh, put me on. Let me do this. Let me get a job. Like,
Yeah, of course.
So I understand, and that's why I told you. Like, for me, now being in this space, I'm just like, yo, like my approach, I went about it, might have not been as.
But you know what though, the core and the essence of where you were coming from was understood. Like, it wasn't on something like, Duane, you're an idiot. It's like, yo. So like it's the passion that you have for wanting to build. So it's like, sometimes it comes off the wrong way, but it's rooted in a good place. So it's not really taken as like, yo, whatever with this guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I feel like as we grow and we understand that, sometimes, like I said, people are in positions to make decisions that are best for that particular moment in time. And they have to make that decision, so when the next time comes, there's more opportunity.
Okay,
that's
so
what I understood.
I got a question for you.
All right.
This is your podcast.
All right, for sure, shoot.
So I remember you told me a while ago, you're like, Duane, I'm working on something. I want you to be a part of it. When I'm ready, it's not ready yet. But like, you kind of had that vision for a while to bring this together. Like, how was that whole process?
Man, I mean, I actually, and I'll be like completely honest, I was watching like the Rap Radar podcast, shout out to like Tidal and Elliot Wilson and all those guys. And I don't know, I just really, like I said, man, like a lot of people didn't really get to see me in that space. Like, I played basketball. A lot of people used to be like, yo, this is the guy from the neighborhood. Yeah. But not understanding that, like, I love to connect with people.
Right.
I love to tell stories and just shoot the ish. You know what I'm saying? Really, really get to know people on that other side. And I feel like that was the starting of it, is like, yo, like, I want to really understand how this person got here. I watch a lot of documentaries, like, the things that like guys like you and Akil do, like, I think that's dope. That's a career. Like, I didn't know that when I was like coming up. Like, you guys get paid a lot of money to do what you do and talk about things that I talk about for free.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
I feel you on that.
So it's like, to see that, I'm like, yo, man, like, let me let me really like lock in. Like these are people that are in the industry like myself. You know, I have the connection. I've played in the sport, and you know, like I said, I owed it to a lot of the voices in my community that didn't have that elevated platform.
Right.
They were the ones telling me like, yo, what do you feel about this person not being able to play in this tournament? I'm like, yo, don't worry, like, I got you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's what I owe to my culture and my community, to be that champion for like those people that don't really have that story to tell.
Right.
You know, and along that way, you start to understand, like I said, people more. Like I get to chop it up with a kill and understand, like, damn, like this guy really is the innovator. This guy really did push it forward.
Yeah.
I look at like what you did with I'm doing research now, like, damn, this NBA Excel, Hangout, Crown alone, like that's big, like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And like for a person like me, like that gives me inspiration. I look at this, I'm like, yo, like.
But see, I'm glad, and I even look at like an NBA, like the Hangout, like there wasn't a space for us to like see us. You know what I mean?
It's crazy, bro.
And like I think that's what's, you know, like, and I would see, and it's funny because on the Hangout, like I would come on like sometimes if like guests cancel last minute, whatever, and someone would be like, yo, you're the guy from the Hangout, and I'm like, I'm barely on the show, but so you must really watch the show.
Yeah, man.
But when people would kind of, but I think because, you know, they might not agree. Like they might not agree with the people, stuff people said, but it's like, it's almost like being in the barbershop. And I feel like to kind of have that platform where people are speaking like how we talk about ball, whether it's we're going to talk about, you know, the dope stuff that happens on the court, or like, you know, the drama with Carmelo and KG or whatever the case may be. I think that stuff is really important. So giving people stuff to aspire to has been really important.
Yeah, and I just feel like, especially, you know, I'm going to wrap up with, you know, representation in this field. We've all experienced situations in life where, you know, we didn't have the majority.
Yep.
Right? And I talk about this being the new majority. Like, it's not the first guy that did. No, this is the majority.
Yeah.
Right? Hove is doing what he's doing. Bron is doing what he's doing. Mav is doing what he's doing. Rich Paul and all these. This is going to be the new, like, the new regime. Like, like, let's continue to utilize our resources, our platforms, our information, and come together under one common idea and goal to push the culture forward. You get what I'm saying?
I feel you.
And I feel like that, if we have that mindset and that mentality, things will go in a positive direction, you know? But I know, like I said, it starts with understanding the value of like African-American strategy and understanding why we should invest in it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like that's like everything to me. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, representation matters so much in terms of having our voices being put in platforms in positive lights as opposed to like the negative lights that we see.
Yeah.
And I think also just telling our own stories in a way that, you know, like in a way that is authentic to us.
Yeah.
And whether it's like not even just like telling our own stories, but like highlighting other people, whether it's black men or women who are doing stuff. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, it's, you know, like I said, man, it's the, you know, the reality of it is there's a lot of stories that need to be told that probably nobody will ever tap into.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, you know, we talk about these documentaries that they're doing, the Biggie story, and it's like, oh yeah, it's cool, but is that the real story? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so that's why I said, like, that also leaves me inspired. Like, yo, if I can somehow like tell that real story, like, you know what I'm saying? Mike's story was amazing.
Right.
Like, Twee's story was amazing.
Of course.
You know, but there's more stories out there. You know, there's a guy like you, like the Akil story.
Yeah, I forgot, man. Yeah, that was big for you, man. The whole Sportsnet thing, man. Congrats, man.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. But there's more to tell. So
no, there's so much more to tell.
You know, so I'm gonna hit you with one thing we do before we get out here.
Okay.
It's called the quick hitters. So
all right.
Top 5 rappers, bro.
Wow. Nas, Biggie. Oh, man. So, okay, this question, I'm not trying to stall, I'm not trying to like dance or qualify it, but like for me, it's like top 5 to me. I mean, because no, I know, but always no, because we go, oh, like
no,
like,
to you.
So I say I put Mos Def in there. I mean, like, people can say he's not a great.
Tough.
So hold on, Nas, Biggie, Mos Def. Jay-Z's in there. And also too, it's like music is a thing where you connect to it emotionally, right? You have moments for it, right?
Yes.
So like, we could both talk about like Illmatic as a record, and I could have so much, I remember riding to the courts with my boys, and your connection to that might be different. So it's so personal.
My connection to, bro.
No, I mean like.
Yeah. New York State of Mind. Boom. Every time I touch JFK, that's the first song that's on my thing. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Man.
Yeah.
Oh,
so you got Nas, Mos Def, Biggie, Jay-Z. You got one more, bro.
Oh man.
You look like a Wu-Tang guy for some reason.
I love Wu-Tang, but I don't know if I'm putting someone from Wu-Tang in my top 5.
Really?
I mean, like,
Raekwon?
Cuban Links is a top 5 record to me, for sure.
What about Raekwon, though?
Yeah, only before Cuban Links.
Yeah.
But okay. I like Raekwon, but I like Rakim. I think, as an MC, I gotta put Rakim in there.
Okay, so you got Rakim, Hov, Nas,
Biggie, Mos
Def. That's solid. Okay, and top 5 cities.
Top 5 cities.
Yep.
Without bias, I'm gonna say this. We were talking about Paris earlier, but Paris is in there for sure.
Wow.
Toronto, easily. New York. I love New York. Mm-hmm. I like Montreal. I don't know if Montreal's in the top 5.
Montreal's a sleeper city too.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on. Paris, New York, Toronto. I think Chicago. And I'll put Montreal in there.
Okay, and then last but not least, your top 5 favorite shoes.
Oh, man.
I know you're a sneakerhead, man. I had to come.
Air Jordan 3 is easy number 1 for sure.
Jordan 3s, classic.
Jordan 1s, Jordan 4s. Literally, my closet is full of all those shoes. So it's 3. I don't wear them anymore, but like the Air Force One was like a really big thing for me when I was younger, like the lows or ups even, you know what I mean? And it's like a staple. I don't really rock them that heavy, but I mean, like that was like a big thing for me, like when I really started like the sneaker thing. And I think probably like the Air Force, the shoe that kind of really got me really problems with sneakers is the Air Force Max Speed, which is the Fab 5 shoe.
The black ones.
Yeah, black one, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because a lot of things I did was just getting shoes that I remember growing up that I never could afford or never got, whatever. And that was a shoe that I got that I was like, then I started really getting crazy in sneakers.
And these prices are crazy now, so I could imagine.
But the Fab, that moment, Fab 5 was like so iconic, right?
Yeah, everything.
Black socks, boom.
Yeah, even like the disruptors of like baggy shorts.
Exactly.
And, you know what I mean? Like the Team for Us.
Yep.
Right, and then the last message, or my closing message, is the message that you would give to your younger self.
Wow. It's so funny. I've been working on so many things right now, dealing with that whole thing, but I've actually never really thought about one for me. So this is a good question. I think I feel like it's going to sound so cliche when you say this stuff, whatever. But trust the process, trust the journey, continue to work, and be aware of how you manage and treat people in relationships. Because for me, I think relationships are really important.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm like, segue, even though we're wrapping up, I mean, Richard and Marty. So first year Crown, Richard, the security guard's like, yo, there's a player who's like being like really disrespectful, whatever. And I go, hey, Rich, man, like, we didn't know each other at the time, but I knew who he was. I'm like, whatever. And he's like, kind of, whatever. Like, I don't know who you are. Like, totally point me off, whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, this guy's whatever, right? Next year, he was working security at Crown. He wasn't even playing. And it was like, I realized that this is the guy who was playing, whatever. And the following year, he was like, yo, before he started, he's like, I gotta apologize to you. I remember how I interacted with you and the manner I interacted with you, that was like not cool. And I really didn't govern myself accordingly. And I apologized, whatever. And that was the year, like that was Richard's coming out year where he was like doing his thing, whatever.
For sure.
And not that it meant anything, but like I think that was an example of where people like you never really know who you deal with and how that's gonna happen. And we were cool. It wasn't ever an issue for us. But I think that like there's always gonna be, you got to treat everyone the right way, man. You got to treat everyone fairly in the same way.
I feel like that's the golden rule of life, right? Like treat others the way you would want to be treated. Treat the janitor like the principal.
Exactly,
Because if I was in his shoes, that's how you would treat me.
yeah, and it's not even because, oh, you never know where the janitor's gonna be. That's just the right thing to do.
Yeah. The
Period,
janitor
right?
usually opens the gym for you too.
Straight up, right?
That's why.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
hey, like I said, continue to be that source of inspiration for the city of Toronto. And,
Appreciate that,
the
man.
basketball community. Like I said, I don't know how much times I have to say it, bro. That invention with the Crown League really, like I said, shed a light on our city outside of music. We talk about people regarding Drake as, the guy in Toronto, which, he's done what he's done. But, like I said, there's the unsung heroes, the guys like you that really shed the light on the Toronto basketball scene. So, I'm giving you your flowers, bro. You might not be legendary.
I appreciate
you don't
that,
think you're a legend, bro.
Hey, honestly, I appreciate you having me on.
No worries,
just a chance
man.
to speak and rap with you, because
for sure.
in a court, in a gym, is totally different than this kind of environment.
Absolutely.
So kudos to you, man, for doing this and keeping it moving, man. I
Yeah.
think conversations are always important, man. It's always to hear people in different platforms and different perspectives that you normally do. So congrats, man.
Yeah, no worries. With that, we're checking out episode 6, Heart of the City. Where can they follow you at Instagram, man?
At Duane Watson. I mean, that's where I am. I don't really use Twitter that much, but that's where I am too. So, yeah.
All right, you heard the man of the hour, or maybe 2. Checking out. We'll see you guys next week on A Culture Conversation. I'm your host, Twin GQ, and we're out. Peace.